Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's Christine with Gauge Girl Training. If you are just getting this video, you probably already downloaded my free macros blueprint. If not, in today's video, I'm going to walk you through how to calculate your macros in 10 easy steps, and those 10 steps are outlined here in this free PDF download link below. You need to sign your name, your email, and most people, make sure you check your spam folder. You need to opt in from emails from us to make sure you receive it. So let's get started. I'm gonna walk you guys through exactly how to use it, teach you how to calculate your macros for free. So before I get into the 10-step macronutrient roadmap, we're going to answer the question, what are macros and why do they matter? Macros is short for the term macronutrients. And macronutrients consist of protein, carbs, and fat. All food is made up of one of these three nutrients, and it's what makes up the caloric content of food. So knowing that, it's important to understand that what you eat is only one of these three things, and the breakdown of those macros in a given food is going to impact your body. Now, why and how does that even happen? So think about this, guys. Most people take a pretty one-dimensional view when it comes to fat loss and weight loss. They think, okay, calories in, calories out. While that is true to a certain extent, we're not gonna get into that in this video, the key is that 1,500 calories of carbohydrates and 1,500 calories of fat are not going to perform the same in your body. They're going to break down differently. They're going to be used for different functions. What you ultimately end up looking like is going to vary. So the reason why you want to look at your macros and not just calories alone is for people who want to change their body composition. And when I say body composition, this is what I mean. So if you just wanted to lose weight and you just wanted to see the number on the scale go down, you could be losing water, you could be losing muscle, or you could be losing some fat. The problem is if you are just counting calories, you may be losing some fat, but you may be losing some muscle. So if you want to strategically just lose this and keep this, your macros are going to matter. So let's get into the heart of the matter. And I've simplified it, you guys, into a simple 10-step method. And again, I printed this and bound this at Staples, but the PDF is yours to keep. Download it below. Make sure you sign up and save the file so that way you have future access to it. So we're gonna get started with step number 1. That is to determine your BMR. As you guys can see here in the guide, I have a whole page on determining your BMR. Your BMR is your basal metabolic rate. It tells you how many calories you need to sustain your current body mass at rest. Now, for most of you, you probably want to drop body fat, where some of you may want to maintain, some of you may want to gain. This value, it's a function of your weight, your height, and your age. Now, there are equations in here explaining how to do it. It's different for men and women. However, what I suggest you guys do is you use an online calculator. You can determine your BMR on a website called active.com. It is the BMR calculator I use for all of my client calculations, so I would recommend you head on over there. Now, once you have this value and you know what your BMR is, this takes you over to step number 2. And step number 2 is to apply an activity factor. So I have a page here in the guide explaining what all the different activity factors are, how they break out based off of how active you are. Essentially what this means is we're gonna estimate how many calories you're burning in a day. So once you figure that out, you select your activity factor. So this leads us to step number 3, which is to determine your TDEE, or your total daily energy expenditure. So in order to determine this, this is an estimate of how many calories you are burning in a day for your body to function, as well as all of your activity. So you take your BMR and you multiply it by your activity factor. That gives you your TDEE, or your total daily energy expenditure. So this leads us to step number 4, which is to determine your goal. So what are you trying to do? Are you trying to lose fat? Are you trying to maintain? Or are you trying to gain muscle? Pick one of those goals. Now, if you want to lose body fat, again, all of this is explained in the guide. If you want to lose body fat, you take your total daily energy expenditure, or your TDEE, and subtract 500 from it. If you want to maintain, you take your total daily energy expenditure and you set that to your total daily caloric intake. Or if you want to gain muscle, you take your total daily energy expenditure and you add anywhere from 300 to 500 calories. 300 calories for lean gains, 500 calories for more of a bulk. This leads us to step number 5, which is to determine your macronutrient approach. Right here, guys. So what does this mean, determine your macronutrient approach? There is more than one way to figure your macros. I like to call the primary approach that I use and that most people use, I like to call it the bodybuilder / fitness competitor style approach. This approach is a relatively high protein, low fat, moderate carb approach. This approach is very effective because being on a high protein diet puts your body in a positive nitrogen balance, which allows you to utilize fat as a fuel source. Another common approach to macros, which a lot of my clients do, I've done a few points in the last few years, is the ketogenic approach. Now, this is ideal for those who are pre-diabetic, who may have insulin resistance, PCOS, or really struggle with carbohydrates. So pick between those two. Now, there's several macro approaches. I teach this in my Mastering Macros Masterclass. Or I could also, if you want to learn all of the science and all of the things about every macro approach possible, who, what, when, where, why, for everything, you can purchase my course, and here's the link for that, and I'll put that in the description box below. But also, if you have very specific needs, you can also order a one-on-one consultation or a customized meal plan, and we'll help you sort that out, because these are the two primary approaches that are going to work well for the majority of people. Once you figure out your approach, and the details of each approach are in the guide, you can read through that in painstaking detail. Now let's move on to step number 6. And that is to determine your protein intake. Inside of the guide, I give you guys parameters for exactly how to determine how much protein you should take in a day. So if you are sedentary, this is an individual who does not work out, you're inactive, you do not wish to gain lean muscle, I recommend 0.4 to 0.6 grams of protein per pound body mass. Now, if you are a lightly active individual, this is 0.7 to 0.8 grams per pound body mass. This is for individuals who work out about 1 to 3 times a week. Only body weight, you're not really like killing it really hard. Now, if you're an active individual, you want to see changes, you're rocking and rolling in the gym. This is 0.8 to 1.0 grams of protein per pound of body mass. And this, again, this is individuals who are working out 3 to 5 times a week, looking to build muscle, minimize fat gain. Or if you are extremely active individual, 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per pound. Again, this is for athletes, fitness competitors, those who work out 5 to 7 times a week, looking to maximize fat loss and focus on lean muscle definition. So please note that the FDA only recommends 10% of the total daily calories from your protein. That's 50 grams of protein on a 2,000 calorie per day diet. And the World Health Organization recommends 0.36 grams per pound or 0.8 grams per kilo. The context of this is what I recommend for those of you who are looking to build muscle and lose fat, especially more on this higher range here. So now that you know your protein intake, you select one of those protein parameters. Now, step number 7 is to determine your fat intake. So I have all of the parameters for fat intake spelled out here. I'm gonna read them off to you guys. So again, finally, the FDA and World Health Organization and your girl actually agree on something, and we do agree on fat intake. So the FDA and the World Health Organization says that you should take about 30% of your total daily calories per day from fat. And that's about right. I do recommend that. So if you want slow fat loss, I say slow fat loss meaning you don't want to have to go so low in fat. You don't want to have to give things up like those fattier cuts of meat. You don't want to give up as much olive oil. You want to be able to have that kind of stuff without having to eat the really dry, lean meats. Slow fat loss, I say, is about 0.4 to 0.45 grams of fat per pound. It's a great starting point, and I would tweak from there as needed. Now, this will support fat loss without compromising your satiety, provides a long-term sustainable lifestyle change. So this is going to be nice and slow and steady. Now, moderate, I would say 0.3 to 0.4 grams of fat per pound. This is for somebody who's looking for steady to moderate results. You're looking to shred at a reasonable rate. You want those contest prep-like results, but you don't want to go as low as a fitness competitor in fat. Now, if you want aggressive fat loss, you want to go pedal to the metal, this is ideal for contest prep, photo shoot prep, or a short-term physique-oriented goal because going much lower could cause some brain fog, and it's not sustainable if you do it for too long. This is around 0.25 to 0.3 grams per pound. There are other specialty protocols in here explaining what to do for the ketogenic approach, what to do for a low carb, high fat approach. So those details are in this guide, so make sure you download it. Step number 8, we are going to determine the carb intake. So carbs is a subtraction. So what does that mean? Now I do have parameters in here for the carb intake, but when I say subtraction, so you know your total calories, because we figured out your total daily energy expenditure and you set your goal, subtracted calories, kept them the same, or added calories to that if you want to gain weight, or subtract the calories from your TDE if you want to lose weight. Now that you know how much protein you're going to eat in a day, you know how much fat you're going to eat in a day, what you then do is determine how many calories that is for each one of those parameters and subtract it from the total daily caloric intake. Again, all the outlined information is available for the carb intake. I have a template, a detailed template teaching you how to determine your macronutrient percentages from your macros. So if what I just said about carbs does not make sense to you, it's all explained right here on the guide. So what you do is you take your BMR, like I said, take your BMR, multiply it by your activity factor, and you take that value, those two multiplied by each other is your total daily energy expenditure. You take your total daily energy expenditure, which is how many calories, again, you need to sustain your current body mass plus all of your activity calories. Then you apply a caloric deficit if you want to lose weight. So you subtract 500. That's your total daily calorie goal. And I walk you through each step of exactly how to do the math. I fill in the blank for you. It is a detailed worksheet. And you can determine exactly how many grams of carbs you need to consume in a day, as well as the proteins and the fats. What you do once you get all of that is step number 9, which is you review the macro recommendations. So you ask yourself, when you look at the final numbers you come up with, you say, okay, for the calories, is this rate of progress going to be too fast? I know everyone says they want to lose weight fast, but can you live with that? Can you live with that little food? It depends. So you really got to ask yourself some realistic questions. Or for some of you, maybe you're gaining weight or your rate is not dialed in. You have to ask yourself, is this physically going to be too much food for me? So ask yourself, do these calories look right? Next step is your fat. Is the fat going to be too low for your preferred eating style? So let's say you run your numbers and you find that your fats are like 35 grams. Well, you may be like 35 grams in a day, that's like nothing. That's way too aggressive. Another thing is your fat to carbs may be off. So if your fats are too high and you find that your carbs are too low, the fat may be taking away from your carbs. So you really need to readjust and balance these numbers based off of what's going to make the most practical sense for you and your situation. Now, carbs. Will the carbs provide sufficient volume to keep you full and satisfied? Be careful sometimes if you go too low in carb. You may run your numbers. You may jack up your protein and jack up your fat. You may put your protein way too high. You may have your fat somewhere in the middle, and then what's left is a very, very tiny amount of carbs. And that may not be feasible as well. You also have to ask yourself, is the carbs you came up with going to be enough energy to support your workouts? Last but not least, the protein. You gotta ask yourself these questions, guys. Will the protein content be overwhelming? Is this gonna be a stupid amount of protein that you have no clue how you're gonna practically eat all of this? Or you also gotta ask yourself, is this protein going to be enough to support the muscle gain and maintenance goals I want? So these are the types of things we go over in a one-on-one macros consultation. We go through these things. I will adjust them and tweak them. And when you get a custom meal plan from Gauge Girl Training, we take all of these things into consideration. And then obviously, step 10 is to report your final macros. You guys are welcome to go through it for yourselves, but you will see there is a lot of judgment calls that need to be made when you're calculating your macros. And this is why I do not recommend any macronutrient calculator on anyone's website. I don't care who you are. And the reason I don't is because you have to look at the context. And I don't believe that somebody who is brand new to figuring out macros truly understands the context with which to properly set themselves, which is why I'm explaining this to you in this video. So free download below, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you got questions, comment below. Fill up the comment section with all of your questions, guys. I'm happy to answer them. Peace out. See you in the next one.